Vítejte u podcastu Aloisovy otázky pro pečující o blízké s Alzheimerovou nemocí, který pro vás připravuje nadační fond Seňorina.
So, hi, my name is Hana, and I'm here with Dr. Cameron Kemp, who is an applied gerontologist. I will ask you Alois questions. Our podcast is named Alois Questions after Alois Alzheimer. And I would like to welcome you to our podcast.
It is my pleasure. Thank you, Hannah.
So this must be a question you get a lot, but we know that Maria Montessori was a pioneer who established educational methodology mainly for children. And I would like to know what is Montessori for seniors and what are the basics for the dementia methodology?
Certainly. While Montessori established many schools for children, what she was doing was creating a way of life. And so there are programs for Montessori from birth until one and a half years. There are Montessori programs for what we call toddlers, children 18 months to 3, Montessori all the way through high school. She also wanted to start what she called the White Cross, where Montessori teachers and doctors and nurses would go to places where there were disasters or war to help people recover. And so we are sometimes asked, Montessori for seniors, does this mean that you treat older adults like children? And the answer is no. Montessori treated children like persons, and she focused on the values of respect, dignity, equality, and trust. How could you treat an older adult with respect and dignity and equality if you were treating them like a child? And so it's about enabling persons to learn to be independent, to be part of a community, and to be their best selves, the best person they can be. So she applied these approaches to children, but these are approaches, this is a way of thinking that works for anyone of any age.
Thank you very much. Of course, I looked into you a little bit and I found out that your children went to a Montessori school. I would like to ask you, when did you realize that this particular method could be applied for seniors, if you have a particular moment?
I know the specific moment.
Mm-hmm.
I had been interested in learning more about Montessori for some time. My first daughter has learning disabilities, so I wanted to learn about the Montessori method because she often worked with children who were impoverished or had disabilities. And my son, my middle child, and my youngest daughter were going to be going to preschool. And at the same time, I began working with persons with dementia. I had worked previously with older adults who did not have cognitive impairment in my early career, but I began to work with people with dementia at the same time that my son began to go to a Montessori school. My earlier work was in training older adults how to remember things better. So, how to remember a grocery list, that sort of thing. None of those techniques worked with persons with dementia. They were useless. Okay. And I was wondering, how can I teach persons with dementia? And while I was wondering that, I took my son to visit a Montessori school where he later began. Heard the angels singing. Heaven opened up, and that approach to teaching seemed so different, but so appropriate and universal. So I took a friend of mine, a neuropsychologist, to visit the school. And I said, what do you think? Do you think this would work for people with dementia? And he said, you've got to try it. And then he enrolled his children in the school also. So that was in 1983. And so that was when this began. It grew slowly over time because I had other research interests, but yes, that was it. And then when we moved to Cleveland, I began working in a research institute that was part of a large community serving older adults. And I said, if I'm going to follow this path, I need to devote most of my time to it. So I brought in a woman with dementia who was in a wheelchair. And I asked her to present a Montessori lesson to a 3-year-old child at the child care center there. And that was when I knew it would work. It was so clear and so obvious. She demonstrated how to scoop objects with an ice cream scooper into muffin tin. You cook small cakes, you have 12 holes. So she was putting red golf balls into red holes, white golf balls. And the 3-year-old boy was doing it after the demonstration. And later his mother said, when he came home, he said, we've got to get some golf balls. And the woman with dementia was so proud of his accomplishments. And at that moment, which was, I think, in 1995, I said, okay, this is the way forward. So.
You mentioned value, that the Montessori method helps people with dementia feel valued. Could you help us and explain how does this method do it?
Sure. So a person with dementia wants what any person with or without dementia wants. They want to live in a home where the things that are familiar to them and give them comfort are present. They want to know their neighbors. They want their neighbors to know them. They want a reason to wake up in the morning. They want purpose. They want to feel competent. And they wish to serve a higher purpose, for the most part, to help others, to be part of a community, and to be connected to the world. These are basic human needs. These are the elements of our existence as social creatures. And so this is what the Montessori approach for persons with dementia tries to provide. So let me give you an example. There was a memory care neighborhood in Florida, and we are great believers in committees in residential care, where the residents decide what they want to do for outings, to where to visit, what they want to do for activity, for entertainment. And a group of residents formed a social concerns committee. So every 3 months, they would pick a different topic. One topic was the hungry. And so they raised food. They collected food for the hungry and brought it to a church where the food for the hungry was being distributed. That is a different outing than getting in a van to look at the leaves in the fall, when they change color, and the look on their faces when they came back, helping, and this is a quote, those who are less fortunate than we are. One topic was the homeless, and so they put together packages of toiletry items, toothbrush, toothpaste, shampoo, and they brought these to people in a homeless shelter. And they told the people, your life will get better, we're praying for you. And this is what a person with dementia can do in the right environment. These are ordinary people in an extraordinary environment. And that is what we try to provide for persons living in the home. For example, what's very important is to enable a person with dementia to still have a role in the family based on what they can do. So, for example, if a person with dementia can still read, and that means the print is large enough, okay, and they tell us how large it should be. If they can read it, it's large enough. A person with dementia can read to the family member who is making a meal while the meal is being made. This gives a role to the person with dementia. It helps foster the relationship. And the person who is cooking does not have to worry about where the person with dementia is, what that person is doing in another room. So it's about looking at what a person can do instead of what they cannot do. We use a rehabilitation approach rather than a medical approach, thinking about dementia. We want to know what skills are still available, and then we want to create what we call cognitive ramps. If a person is in a wheelchair, you'll see a ramp going from like in front of their house over the steps, so the person can still get into their home by themselves, not have to be carried. So we have to create those kind of items in the environment to let a person with dementia go around, circumvent, overcome their deficits, and use their strengths. So, for example, my mother-in-law came to visit us for a summer. She was brought with her son, who was going to be working at the Cleveland Clinic that summer, studying to be a medical doctor. And my mother-in-law had Alzheimer's disease. So the first day her son leaves, and my wife's mother comes to my wife after a while and says, "Where's my son?" My wife said, "He is at the Cleveland Clinic. He will be home this afternoon." So this answer satisfied her mother, but because of dementia, she forgets the episode. And so 20 minutes later, she asks my wife, "Where's my son?" Now, typically, a caregiver would be told, just be patient, answer or distract. And it's a very stressful thing for the caregiver. But my wife, a Montessori teacher, more than 20 years, writes down in very large print, "Your son is at the clinic. He will be home this afternoon." Shows it to her mother and says, "What does this say?" And the mother reads it out loud. So this cognitive ramp that lets her store the information externally when she cannot store it internally has the right content. That's very important. Does it satisfy their need? Okay. And it can be read and understood. So you make sure those two things are present in the cognitive ramp. Then my wife took the paper and taped it down to a table in the dining room, because if you do not tape it down, it will be put in a safe place by the person with dementia and no one will ever find it again. We've already made all the mistakes, all right? And so 20 minutes later, again, her mother says, "Where's my son?" But this time my wife said, "There's a message about that. Let's go see." And walks with the mother to the location where the message is. Persons with dementia can still learn.
You have
That's very
answered
important to know.
several of my other questions.
Yes,
So
and so this is important.
Mhm.
They can learn locations, and it's like in a day center, perhaps where you have a center.
Mhm.
You know that if you have a new client, a new person coming with dementia, and they sit in the place at lunch where someone else has been sitting, the person who's been sitting there is upset because they have learned that that is their chair. And they learned it after the diagnosis of dementia. People with dementia are learning all the time. We haven't been trained to see it or to use it. And the learning systems that are available to persons with dementia are the learning systems that first are available to children early in life. So a Montessori teaching method fits very nicely. So they can learn locations. So my wife takes her mother to this location and says, points to the message and says, "What does this say?" She did not read it for her mother. She had her mother do the procedure of reading it for herself. People with dementia can learn procedures if they practice correctly. And they have habits. Reading is a habit. It's done unconsciously. Okay. And so the mother reads it out loud, has the information that calms her down. And my wife said, "That's right. Whenever you want to know about your son, you can come here." An hour later, "Where's my son?" To learn a procedure, you want to practice it in the same way each time. So my wife says the same thing. "There's a message about that. Let's go see." And they go to this location. "What does this say?" The mother reads it. "That's right. When you want to know about your son, you can just come here." 2 hours later, "Where's my son?" "You know, there's a message about that. Let's go see." They go, she looks, she reads. And for the rest of that day, and for the rest of her stay, when her anxiety would rise about "Where's my son?" her feet would carry her to this location. She may not know why she's going there, but the feet have learned. Just like the client in your center knows where to go to sit for lunch. They don't think about it. It's unconscious, automatic, effortless. And it is these unconscious, effortless learning systems that are available to persons with dementia, if we know how to tap into them. Her mother would walk to this location. You'd see her mouth moving when she's reading the message. Her anxiety is reduced. And the feeling of reduced anxiety becomes associated with this location and with this procedure. So my wife enabled her mother to reduce her own anxiety. My wife freed herself up from having to answer questions all the time. And my wife freed her mother, because instead of always worrying about the location of her son, she was free to be able to do other things, to interact with my wife, and to not have to always be asking the question. And the cost? Paper and a different way of thinking. So this is about learning how to think differently about what a person with dementia can do. It's about understanding why they're doing what they're doing. We say a person with dementia is a normal person with some cognitive disabilities. They're acting the same way that we would under the same circumstances. A person with dementia is not crazy. A person with dementia is a person. So when we encounter a challenging behavior, or what we call it a responsive behavior, it is a response to an unmet human need. It is our job to be detectives, to try to understand the cause of the behavior. When we encounter a person with dementia with a responsive behavior, we must ask a simple but profound question. Why is this happening? And the answer can never be because they have dementia. Why is this happening? Because they have dementia. How do we know they have dementia? Because this is happening. That doesn't help you. It doesn't explain anything. So the question then becomes,
how would we then approach a behavior that is negative? For example, if someone is aggressive or sexually harasses their caregivers, or maybe is depressed.
Yes. So once again, when we encounter a responsive behavior, the first thing we must do is to describe the behavior in observable terms. I tell people, I cannot help you with aggression. I can help you with hitting, spitting, cursing, pinching. These are things we can observe, because then we can see if the hitting or the cursing or the spitting increases or decreases when we use interventions. Okay. So the first thing we must learn is to speak in observable terms. I always say, what would I see and what would I hear when the person is showing the responsive behavior? Okay. So are they hitting, for example? Okay. So if they're hitting when, say, a family member, a caregiver is trying to provide care, the question then becomes, why are they hitting? So I would also ask, what are they saying when they're hitting? Okay, because that's often a clue. What happened just before this? So is there a triggering mechanism? Many times a person with dementia hits or resists care, that's a quote, because they're trying to keep control over their own life. And they think that the person providing care is trying to tell them what to do. And especially if this is like a family member, like a son or a daughter, and the parent with dementia says, you know, I raised you. I changed your diapers. And you are going to tell me I have to get out of bed now? This is not about dementia. This is about relationships. It's about a person wanting to believe that they are not helpless, a person who does not want to be told what to do. And so the key for that is pretty simply a couple of things. One is to give choice. Okay. And so for a person with dementia, you have to give choice that is useful, that they can actually make the choice. Would you like to wear this shirt or this shirt? That's different than what would you like to wear today? That's way too complicated, especially if they have a closet and they have many clothes. So would you like to wear this or this? But it's their choice. And they might say none of those. Let's find something you would like to wear. but the way you feel, once again, okay, these emotional responses, the way you feel about having a choice applies then to what you're wearing and the person who gave you the choice. Okay. Maya Angelou was a poet who said, "I will forget what you say. I will forget what you do. I will never forget how you make me feel." And this is very true of a person with dementia, very true. And so these feelings that they have when they perceive they're given choice or not given choice become associated with the person who does or does not give them choice. Another thing is to demonstrate this. We have like 12 Montessori principles, and a key one is to demonstrate what you want someone to do before you ask them to do it. So for example, you can show that you're putting on the shirt, and then you give them the shirt. With more advanced dementia, it helps if you don't speak very much or at all. You get more of the attention. So you brush your teeth step by step. Step one, you hand them theirs. You take off this. They take off. They open their toothpaste. You put some on. They put some on. The way you feel when someone else brushes your teeth is not pleasant. And you may learn to just sit and let it happen, but it does not mean that you like it or the person doing it for you. So to be able to give that back through demonstration, we say it's a little thing that is a big thing. So break things down into steps, demonstrate each step. You do it first, they do it first. A razor, electric razor. So you do this, show that it's not only not harmful, but it's shaved, and then you hand it to them. That's very different than walking towards someone with a razor blade without saying anything. That's when you see problems. Brushing hair, yeah.
Sorry, how can we find activities that stimulate people with dementia? What is something that we can do to make sure that the things we help them do are something that is close to their heart?
Yeah, so the first thing is that you have to know the person. What is it that would be meaningful for them? Okay. And also, what are their capabilities at this moment in time? So, for example, instead of going to a person and saying, "Please get out of bed now," all right? Especially if the person is a woman, a homemaker, okay? You can say, "Would you please show me how you would like the bed to be made?" Okay. This is very different than "Please get up. Breakfast is getting cold." And so first, try not to use the word can. Can you help me? Can you show me? Can is a test. No one likes to be tested. We say, "Would you?" Would is an invitation between equals. Okay, would you help me? Would you show me how you like the bed made? It gives the power to the person with dementia, gives them the choice. And what's interesting is they become the expert. They are going to teach us how to make the bed the right way. But to do that, they have to get out of bed, right? Would you show me the right way to scramble the eggs? Would you supervise me? Would you show me the right setting for the toast? And so it gives them that role, as opposed to, don't do that. Okay. It's about understanding that they have a need to be needed, that they need purpose. If you're making a salad, can they just tear the lettuce? What can they contribute? Can they still take the skin off of a carrot or a potato with a peeler? Montessori said they will learn through their hands, that children will learn by doing. We remember through our hands also. There's an old saying, it's just like riding a bicycle. Okay. You get on the bicycle and the muscle memory comes back. But that's only true if you're allowed to be on the bicycle. So what abilities has this person had? Can they teach others? Can they teach children? Left to loosen, right to tighten, for a screwdriver, for a wrench. So an older man with dementia can still teach a grandson how to use tools. What abilities remain?
So does this help meet the social needs of someone with Alzheimer's disease?
They will let us know.
Okay. I have a question. Do you also, when you talked about your mother-in-law when she was talking about her son, is it okay to also introduce negative news to someone repeatedly, like that they're going to move to a caring facility, that there is someone who died, which is very possible because people usually get Alzheimer's disease in a later age in their life? And what about the demotivating amount of medications? Do you suggest we should always explain why there is so much medication and so on?
Right. So we have a thing called the Montessori pledge.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And one of the elements is I will treat others the way I wish to be treated. And so how should we treat a person with dementia? We should treat a person with dementia as a person. We should treat them the way we wish to be treated. And so it is, so for example, if a person has died, okay, and they cannot remember that, what to do? And there's almost no research on this. Have you ever seen a book on it? An article? No. Researchers are afraid to touch this. So I'll tell you my opinion based on my, experience. If my wife died, I would want to know. Okay. If I have memory deficits and I wonder where she's at and people tell me she's coming and she never comes, I will learn to hate the people who lie to me. And I'll be more worried. I'm surrounded by liars who won't tell me where my wife is. So you can do this out of kindness, but that's our problem. When someone dies, a person has to grieve. If you have a friend your own age who loses a loved one, you do not go to them and say, don't cry. And it may be best to say nothing. Even something like, I'm sorry, may make things worse. So we're just there for them. We're there with them. We help them go through the grieving process. For you or for me or for any person, it's going to take a year at least. And it will still hit us again at anniversaries or special dates. This is human. We have a saying, it's a human thing. Okay. So how can we enable a person with a memory deficit to work through a grieving process? So if the information cannot be stored externally, internally, we store it externally. So there's a thing called a memory book. A memory book, you have a single picture on each page with some description underneath it. Often it is like the biography of the person. This is me where I was born. This was my mother, up to their current time. And what I've seen also is the obituary, the death notice, okay? And they can go to that. You have a special color for the page, a special tab, and they can go to that when they ask about where the person is, and they can grieve. And I've seen, for example, people who wake up each morning, they go to this location, they may not know why they're doing it. Their hand reaches, they pull the page, they sit and they cry for 5 minutes, and then they're okay for the rest of the day. The grief never goes away. We just experience less pain. Okay, we learn to move on with our lives. This has nothing to do with dementia. But if you don't do that, then you carry around the worry. Where is my husband? Where is my wife? Why aren't they here? Don't they love me anymore? Are they hurt? Do I need to go to them? Why are people telling me not to worry? Yeah. So that is my approach. Again, if this is a generalization, it may not work for everyone. There are complicated grief situations also, depending on the relationship. But, we treat people the way we would want to be treated. So that is our approach.
Thank you very much. Do you have any more examples or stories for us to better understand what the application of the methodology is?
Let's see. So we do a lot of, so here's an example. A daughter comes to her mother and says, tell me a story about when I was 6 years old. And so the long-term memories are there, and the mother says to tells the story to the grown daughter. The grown daughter writes it down. Tell me a story about when you were 6 years old. Another story. Writes it down. Comes home. Prints out the story in big letters, big enough for the grandmother to read them. Has the 6-year-old granddaughter illustrate the stories, and then brings the granddaughter to visit the grandmother who has dementia. And the grandmother reads to the granddaughter stories about when this little girl's mother was her age and when her grandmother was her age. And children love family stories. It doesn't matter how old the child is, 6 or 46. These are the stories we tell at holidays and special occasions. And of course, the 6-year-old child, after the stories are read, says, grandmother, please read them again, because this is what children do. And the daughter collects more stories, and you have a child who likes to visit a grandmother with dementia, and you give the grandmother the role of the keeper of the family history, and the daughter enables this relationship to develop, to grow stronger, even though her mother has dementia. It's using the abilities that are still there. It creates a social role. It's always about relationships and maintaining those. And so these are the things that are possible if we think in different ways, if we focus on what's possible, what people are capable of doing. And when the grandmother passes away, dies, what a wonderful legacy, what a wonderful gift, for the family. And so these are different approaches, but we believe it's the right approach. We need to create environments where we would want to live when we have dementia. So I have a personal interest in all of this for myself, and it's about changing society and the way we think. It's about changing from a medical approach to a more humanized approach, to think in terms of a disability rather than a disease, and to realize that medications that are designed for psychiatric patients generally are not appropriate for a person with dementia who is not suffering from a psychiatric illness. Yeah.
So do you think that is why this approach is not more worldwide spread yet? That we have a medical view of dementia more than a humane approach?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it's different. It challenges authority. It says that looking at dementia as a disease is the wrong approach. It says that the attempts to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease has been a spectacular failure, that the entire approach to finding a cure based on a hypothesis of amyloid causing dementia is wrong, that the evidence is clear that it's wrong, and that we've wasted time and huge amounts of money walking down a blind alley. And of course, the people who control that funding will disagree, but the science is pretty clear. How many, hundreds of, we've had hundreds of failures. How many failures will it take until the amyloid hypothesis is abandoned? And the answer is an infinite number. So this is a revolution. This is a shift, and it's time. It's time. It's time to say enough. It's time to say there has to be a better way, and there is, and this is the way forward.
Thank you very much. I have just 2 more quick questions. And those are if you have any resources that you would like to tell to our caregivers that you would like to recommend to have more information. And second, more about you. When are you going to be in Europe, or is there any online webinars or some of your stuff that we could spread to the world?
Sure. So we have a website, CEN4ARD.com, and perhaps you can put it in.
That would be better.
Yes, for people. We have many resources. These are in English, but we're hoping to get them translated into Czech. We also have a training partner in France, Agid, AG&D. You can put their website also. So if anyone listening speaks French, they have resources as well. You can follow us on our website. We have social media. We have Facebook, LinkedIn. I will be part of a Congress on validation therapy and later this month, talking about teaching empathy and conflict resolution to people with dementia, which is the title of a book that my wife and I wrote. Mm-hmm. And so please, for that, yes, check our resources. And of course, we would love to work with people in your country to have our work translated into Czech. So we will move forward on that, I hope, in the near future as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I have really enjoyed our talk. It has helped me a lot to grow as a caregiver as well. And I'm sure our listeners have also enjoyed our talk. So thank you for answering my Alois questions. I'm going to just put this here so we can take a screenshot of this. Thank you so much.
It was absolutely my pleasure. I would love to do this again. If any of your listeners have questions, you can translate and forward them to me. We love to hear from people, and we love to help in any way we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And it was nice to see you. And maybe we'll meet in Prague.
You're very welcome to come here.
I will lift a beer with you. This is a promise.
Yes.
Excellent. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Pečující mohou využít také odlehčovací službu Centrum Seňorina nebo se setkat s odborníky v Alzheimer Café. Pomáháme lidem s Alzheimerovou nemocí a jejich rodinám prožít ještě radostný čas.